Well, when it first started, oh no, that'll never happen. Well, little by little, they added it on, and now it's $100.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's $100 for all those people that got stopped. Just yesterday, they gave the figure how many tickets they gave. I think it was 55 in 4 hours. Well,
I know.
55 times 100, it's $5,500.
And I listen to this now because it's interesting that North Carolina and down here in Florida would be going through the exact same promotion campaign.
Yeah.
Which makes you wonder where it really comes down from.
It comes from the federal, because
right.
That's what federal is doing. It's telling
right.
the people, since the 1966 Traffic Safety Act was passed, that is the criteria which is under federal control. So every state has to abide by the 1966 Highway Traffic Safety Act. And so you go and you start looking, well, why is this, why is that? Well, gee, your driver's license, you have to, before you register your car, you got to get an insurance on it, right? Well, once you get insurance on it, that's the key, because now you're an international maritime contract. And because you're in an international maritime contract, you have to register the car or truck or, whatever, even for your private use. And because you're a person now, you're not a man or a woman, all statutes are written in the term of person, which is the artificial character. So now, because you had to get insurance, you were forced to get it, and it's maritime. And then when you register it, you automatically are in business because the maritime contract put you in business.
Yep.
And you say, well, wait a minute. Well, aren't you a resident of Florida? Yeah. Well, okay. If I'm there, I would say, where's your contract with Florida? Are a residency. Residency means a contract. And if you're not privy to a contract, you're non-resident in that contract, which means that, okay, if I'm non-resident, then none of the statutes written for the contract apply.
And yet we spoke minutes before, about the fact that by your mere presence in the state.
That's right. And that's why you have to argue and bring up the correct arguments. But the problem is there's so few of us that it doesn't amount to anything. There has to be millions upon millions of people educated enough to go back into it and say, what right do you have to control us? We don't need government.
But yet, you can still be, even though you're in these states, you're still in,
That's right.
You're still in the federal.
Yeah, the federal realm. That's
right.
That's the presumption that they operate on. They operate on the presumption that everybody's a fiction. All right, and that's why everything is in capital letters, because they differentiate the human physical being from the artificial being by the capital letters of their name. And that's designed into the system. Like a paper corporation, all have to have capital letters. In fact, Georgia, in their statutes, comes right out and says that all corporations must be identified by capitalization. Yes, it does. I had a fellow, Don Wagers, from down there in Georgia, did some research for me, and he found it down in Georgia. And he sent it up to me. And I says, okay, that solidifies that. So therefore, all corporations must be in capital A's, capital words, capital letters. GMC, RCA, Food Lion, it's all capital letters. So therefore, that means they're artificial, but they're paper artificial. They're on paper. They're a group of people that got together, created a corporation, registered it in the state, and they're all capitalized. Now, each man Then, if he wants to become part of the corporation, he joins it, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Well, how do you join a state? Oh, you go down and you register to vote. All right?
Okay.
So therefore, that takes the presumption away, and now it's a fact of law that you are a resident in the state of so-and-so, Florida, and therefore all statutes, that makes you a person, therefore all statutes are directed toward persons which are artificial characters. So now you gave up your man status, or man character, not status. Status is a legal term.
Right.
Character is not. And you gave up that, and you are part and parcel a person, and all statutes are written for persons, and therefore persons are the subject of the statute. And you're cooked meat. You can't go in and argue that I'm a man, because if you've got all these latches that they place upon you, it's hard to beat. Very hard to beat.
Now we could move ahead with the idea of the United States as the framers knew it.
They knew it, sure. Because remember, they all had property in England. They were all millionaires, according to today's standards. And the Crown said, hey, look, guys, we got the Navy. We can put a blockade against America, and you ain't going to get squat. And therefore, we will also take all your property and confiscate it under the law of mortmain. You can't give it to anybody. That's where mortgage came from, the law of mortmain.
Okay.
And in case people wonder what mortmain is, in the old days in England, when people died, they would give their property to the church. So the Crown couldn't control the churches at that point in time, anyway. And the king saw all his land being donated to the church, right? And to stop it, he wrote the law of mortmain, which means you could no longer donate your land to the church when you died. All right?
Mm-hmm.
And so anyway, that's where mortmain comes in, and if people want to research mortmain, they can go on the internet probably and type in mortmain and see what they come up with.
Well, now mortgage is used to mean probably you're paying until you're dead.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but when the Constitution was drafted, and the Bill of Rights in particular, it's your belief, not belief, I mean, if you've got the goods on it, we'll just call it what you found out, is that they didn't apply to you and me.
Right.
Why did it apply just to those who hang out in the district?
Because, remember, the United States consisted of Congress assembled, which was 75 people. That was it. That was we the people. That's why the word people was capitalized, and it's the third word in a sentence of we the people. And that's why Patrick Henry said, who gave them the right to say we the people?
All right, so in other words, that isn't some kind of archaic form of grammatic rules, as most of us, and I in particular, have always believed.
Yeah, that's what they did. See, they had to couch it in words that the common people then is the same as the common people today.
Mm-hmm.
Have no clue. All right? Mm-hmm. So it's very easy to put off over people today the same way as they did back then, because the people in Philadelphia, when they...
Okay, for all those who are listening, we were doing this in a pre-record and a dropout, so we just went ahead and patched that. And we'll continue with the discussion about the use of the capital P for people and Patrick Henry's resistance to that.
Well, what they did was... whenever you use a capital letter in a sentence, and it's not the first word of the sentence, you're talking about a specific thing or person or place or whatever. There can be many red cars out in the parking lot, and if I tell you to go get a red car, well, you can go get any red car. But if we're talking before that, and I'd say, well, gee, there's a Ford out there, it's a red car, that's mine, and here's the keys, and maybe I'll ask you to go get it for me sometime. and then I say or write, or it's emphasized next time I see it, oh, go get that red car. And I capitalize red. That means it's red, but it's a particular red car that you already know what that is. Therefore, you go out and you get the Ford, red Ford, and you bring it back to me. That's how you know that is a specific Ford red car. Specific red car, which is a Ford. And that's what they did when they wrote people, because they wanted to be specifically sure that it meant them, the 75 people that signed the Constitution, and not everyday common man on the street, which then they would have taken the capital P out and replaced it with a small p, meaning everybody.
Yeah, but Pat, Patrick Henry knew this, and yet he still...
The people, since the 1966 Traffic Safety Act was passed, that is the criteria which is under federal control, so every state has to abide by the 1966 Highway Traffic Safety Act. And so you go and you start looking, well, why is this, why is that? 55 in 4 hours. Well, 55 times 100, it's $5,500.
And I listen to this now because it's interesting that North Carolina and down here in Florida would be going through the exact same promotion campaign.
Yeah.
Which makes you wonder where it really comes down from.
It comes from the federal, because that's what federal is doing. It's still private use. And because you're a person now, you're not a man or a woman, all statutes are written in the term of person, which is the artificial character. So now, because you had to get insurance, you were forced to get it, and it's maritime. And then when you register it, when it first started, oh no, that'll never happen. Well, little by little, they added it on, and now it's $100.
Oh yeah.
It's $100 for all those people that got stopped. Just yesterday, they gave the figure how many tickets they gave. I think it was 50. Well, your driver's license, you have to, before you register your car, you got to get an insurance on it, right? Well, once you get insurance on it, that's the key, because now you're an international maritime contract. And because you're in an international maritime contract, you have to register the car or truck or, whatever, even for your